It does. And since we are, or at least myself, I'm a person that practices what he preaches. My wife and I have a financial goal plan. I can tell you what it is right now. We found out 3 weeks into being married, we were going to have a kid. Was not the plan, was not the idea. We were going to go travel as a young married couple and have fun and all this other stuff. And 3 weeks in, found out we were going to have a kid and we had to grow up real quick. Our financial plan is this simply: 1 years from right now, little Lord willing, my youngest child will walk across the stage at college graduation and hopefully go out into the world and be on his own. We want to be in a place to where we have the opportunity to work by choice and spend time traveling around and doing things together. Every financial decision that we make, backing up those 20 years, goes with that end goal in mind. And that's all it takes. What do you want that future to look like? By the way, you'll notice they didn't say that at 92, I wanted to have X amount of dollars. It was something that I cannot take with me when I leave this world, and that is time with the person that matters to me the most. And there's a very strong why driving that. That's what we encourage people to find. It's not just the dollar. It's what does the dollar as a tool allow you to do that you can't replace.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Growing Money with Sean Trace podcast. I've got an awesome guest with me. I would just tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do.
Yes, Kyle Luetters, certified financial planner and enrolled agent. Been in the industry for close to 10 years. Live inside of St. Louis, work inside of St. Louis, married a Midwest gal, and that's where we're at. 2 kids, no dogs, so no need for a white picket fence.
That's awesome, man. Take me back. Why did you get into personal finance early on? What was it that pulled you in this direction?
Well, Sean, it's a really interesting story, at least to me, that I graduated college with a broadcasting degree, and I wanted to work in motorsports broadcasting from the time I was a little kid. Loved motorsports, whether it was NASCAR, World of Outlaws, Indy cars, and I went and I did that. And when I did that, I traveled around the United States for 2 to 3 years, was gone 200 plus nights a year. And I met a girl and life started to settle down a little bit more. And all along the way, I really had a strong interest in personal finance. So we were on our honeymoon and we're trying to figure out what the rest of life is going to look like. And she basically said, look, you can't travel 200 nights a year anymore. And still have a good family. So got into this career, started out as an assistant, making about $36,000 a year. That was right around the time we had our first kid, and my wife wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. So our take-home pay went down about 75% over the course of 6 weeks.
Wow.
And so I remember we were living in a condo at the time. I had gotten my first biweekly paycheck after she had stopped working and everybody went on my health insurance. So me, my wife, my daughter. It was like $846.27.
Wow.
And I thought real quickly, what have I done?
Yeah.
2, there are 2 ladies here in this house that are depending upon me. And so what are we going to do? So a lot of the personal finance stuff that I coach clients on now, really from my own story. It is the playbook that we used to get from where we were then to where we are today, which, Lord willing, is prospering, doing well, making wise financial decisions as it pertains to our family and where we want to ultimately go with our goals.
There's a vision there, and part of what I really love hearing that you talk about there is, and it was one of the things that, for a lot of people that are figuring out their personal finance, there is an aha moment where they're sitting there and they're putting things into place. And I remember back in the day, I heard this phrase, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and
Right.
it's like, and one of the things that it pops out for me there is like, when I was younger, I was not the greatest with my finances. And I'm going to say more of it came from the fact that there just wasn't the financial education there for me, where I came up and the people that were around me. But I'm not trying to pass the blame or anything like that. But it was interesting because when I had my daughter, suddenly there was this very clear awareness of, wow, wow, I need to get things going in the right direction, you know? And it was very easy to see that. And it was this very big, powerful catalyst to for me to sit there and go, okay, I need to get this together. And it was all about, in the beginning, then I started seeking out information.
Hmm.
And it was really easy to do that because I said, you know what, this is a there's enough of a reason for me to want to make change. And then
Hmm.
the rest kind of falls into place. And, some people have been lucky enough to have things figured out their whole life. But for a lot of people, there is this change moment that comes along and you go, wow, I need to make some change. There's something coming on. It's interesting to hear you talk about a similar aha moment for yourself.
It really is. And when we work with families and clients, it's exactly that, Sean, in that there's an aha moment. Usually sometimes it's getting married, sometimes it's not. Usually, the birth of a child will prompt a lot of these thought processes. Um, I joke a lot with people that I end up working with that if the progressive commercial where they're warning you about becoming your parents is starting to resonate a little bit more, you're starting to think about these topics now.
Yeah.
Another one too is when families start to prosper and they start to do well and their incomes go into the healthy six-figure numbers. They start to look at their paycheck and go, I'm giving how much to the federal government, or I'm giving how much to the state? Like, that can't be right. And
Yeah.
so when I start to get to folks that start to engage with the content when we're talking about tax mitigation, tax evasion is still a federal offense. I don't recommend that, but tax mitigation is perfectly legal.
Yeah.
Um, that's where we're really starting to have a lot of these aha moments of like, wow, I need to really look at not only just this piece, but all of these pieces that fit underneath this umbrella. Because maybe I've got one spot going right, or maybe I've got this slice going right, but the vast majority of them are not really talking to each other. I like to
Yeah.
use the analogy of a symphony.
I
Your
love that.
financial plan is like a symphony. You have all these individual instruments that are contributing something, but it takes someone directing it off of the
Yes.
music to make it sound beautiful, to make it into something amazing. And that's really a lot of what we get to do. And that's what I was personally seeking when I got into this business. There was a lot of folks that would just sell you insurance, they would sell you investments, or there would be someone to prepare your taxes. There was nobody that I could find at the time that would be a quarterback and a guide for all of it. Not an expert in all of it, but a guide to all of it so I could go to that person and say, this is what our big goal is. This is where we want to end up. This is where we are today. Can you help us be the GPS, be the, be the conductor, if you will, of this symphony to get us to this point, to get us to this finished, beautiful song? And that's been a big reason why I continue to do what I do. I like being that person, that conductor, that guide for people. And it just was a need that I saw wasn't really being met at the time, and it's kind of just grown into that over the years.
I love that. And one of the things that I love that you're talking about too is you're growing this thing and it's organic and it's step by step and the way that you're working with people and it's like I remember remember when I was playing Monopoly and all these other board games when I was a kid and I didn't know all the rules
Hmm.
and I would be getting absolutely destroyed by
Hmm.
the people who did know the rules.
Yeah.
And it's like you can get angry at the people who know all the rules, or you can sit there and start learning to play the game right. Because there's one thing to be said for, like, oh, this isn't fair. I just landed on this place and I have to pay all this money. But you know what? If you learn to play the game right, then there's a lot more fun to be had. And I think that's what I would say is uh, i you can complain about the rules, or you can sit there and try to start working with people who understand the game because it's a lot more fun to play it with a full deck. It's a lot
Hmm.
more fun to play it when you have that information. Because if you
Hmm.
don't, doesn't mean that you're going to have to stop playing by the rules. The rules are still there whether you like them or not. And if you complain about them, there's not any there's my daughter and I were talking today and we have a problem right now. The weather's really bad and there's ticks out everywhere. And
Oof.
she's like, I hate ticks. I'm freaking out by ticks. I hate ticks too. Ticks are the worst and make your skin crawl and all that. But she's like, I wish if we could go back, if we could do this differently, I wish. And I said, none of that does anything. Like, we can look at solutions. We can look at I said, right now, don't wish about anything. That doesn't help us at all. Find solutions and find ways to make your situation better. And we did. We went online, we looked up, and we're like, okay, we found that you can do this one spray. You spray it in your clothes, and it's like a
Mhm.
mild insecticide. People use it, and it keeps the bugs away. And we
Yeah.
bought that. And then, sure enough, she's not having the same problem. And the cool part is that, don't sit there and complain about things. Instead, find ways to empower yourself because that is what's really, really going to make a change.
It's funny you mention it that way, is to look for the solutions. One of our largest clients shared this with me one time. He goes, "Look, I'm going to pay somebody. I'm going to either pay a government or somebody that I don't necessarily agree with the way they're spending the money, but I can't change the way that they tax. I mean, I can write my congressman or my senator all I want to, but it doesn't change in my favor. Or I can pay people like you and the other professionals that I employ, usually a much lower rate, to help me around and understand the rules so that I get to direct more of my dollars where I want them to go. I can be more a part of that solution and get things more in my favor." And that's what I would say to just about anybody that's looking to employ a professional in anything. I don't touch my own plumbing or my own electrical.
Right?
You do it. Um,
Yeah.
just because, like, the consequences of getting it wrong are just too
Yep.
much. And that's what we realize with some folks too, is like, this is something that they just could they do it themselves? 100%. There's so much information out there. Uh, if you're willing to put in the time, and I have told some folks that are DIYers that have come to us and said, "Look, you're interested enough. You have the time to do it. You have the aptitude to do it. You don't need to pay us." But when you do hire someone, it's because you usually want the expertise, but you also want someone to shoulder some of that responsibility with you to a degree for the outcomes. And so we see that as well too with a number of families. But yeah, we can sit here and we can complain that taxes are too high. Yours are too high, mine's too high. But let's play the game better. Let's play Monopoly better. Let's understand the rules, what it says on those little property cards,
Yes.
so that we can win the game.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like there was this great I'm going there. I'm referencing Rick and Morty and a financial podcast. That's why now, man. There's this great Rick and Morty game where Morty is playing this. He gets sucked into this like video game. He's in this like galactic space arcade, and he puts this thing on, and it like takes him through his entire life. And then he goes and he grows old, and suddenly he becomes, he dies, and it's like you made it to 75. And it's like, and it's like, and then Rick pulls him out. He's like, "Get out of the game, Morty. You're going to get stuck there forever." And he played the game again and again and again. And suddenly, but what cracked me up is like, we're in this thing. We got one shot. You might as well
Mhm.
learn to figure out the game, learn the rules, and make the best of it you can. Today, I have a great financial planner who's absolutely awesome, dude. Kevin Dunford, shout out to you, man, because Kevin is great for me. And what he does that is really awesome for me is like Kevin used to be a personal trainer.
Mhm.
And so his whole thing is
He
he's
gets
working with, and he's like let's get you into, he's like, we're working on your finances, but he's like, also get back in the gym, take care of your health, because if you're healthy you can live longer, you can have more, time to invest, you can be doing more stuff. And today, I'm a martial artist, black belt in judo. I love Muay Thai now. That's my thing now. And I live in
right.
Southeast Asia, so Muay Thai is awesome here. And one of the cool things is I was back in class, and I train when my daughter trains, but I got a coach, because one of the things that I noticed I was doing is that I'm a good martial artist. I can take care of myself easily, but there's little things that I do that are not right. And those little things in a real situation could get me in trouble. I was throwing my uppercut. and I wasn't keeping my shoulder tight. He's like, "You're gonna get smacked right there." And so my coach was like, "Let's figure out these little things to get you to a better place." Because, and it's like that's part of the game is like you can sit there and just be where you're at. Maybe that's okay. But wouldn't you want to 10x your life? I mean,
Mhm.
like if I could tell you you could have 10 times the happiness, 10 times your health, 10 times your financial level right now. Wouldn't most people say yes? I mean, and then why not? Like, let's
Mhm.
do it.
It's 100% that way, and I will see, to your example of like something like fixing a little technique and whatnot. A pet peeve of mine is folks that are super excited about large tax refunds.
Hmm.
It's a 0% interest loan to the government. You could take
Yeah.
that money back throughout the year, go do something fun with it, take your kids on vacation, go buy something for the house, or go and invest it. There's a litany of things that you can do, but so many people are like, "You know what? I just don't wanna mess with the IRS. I don't wanna pay taxes. I would be over withheld just so it's safe." And it's like, it's not really the best thing for you. But it's these little tweaks that can be made. We see it a lot too with like asset allocation. Most retail investors will come to, or many retail investors will come to us and say, "Hey, I think we really need to invest in X." Well, they've been talking about X for 6 or 7 weeks by the time you have finally worked up the courage to do something. And now you want to go completely over here. The easy money's already made. The amount of risk now that exists out here for this to crater, we can go back to all those meme stocks. AMC, GameStop, the entire 9 yards, the number of folks retail wise that lost money in those deals. And it's just all these little things that make a difference. And back to your trainer analogy, part of this is showing a process and holding you accountable to a process. When you go and meet with
Yeah.
your personal trainer, you probably tell them exactly what you want the end outcome to be, right?
Yep.
And then you're saying, "Hey, I'm here today. I want to be this over here. Now you tell me how to get there."
Yes.
If you don't listen
Yes.
to the trainer with
Yeah.
what they prescribe in their process, you're probably not going to get there.
No.
And also, too, like if you do 95% of it, but you go and eat jelly donuts 3 nights a week,
Yep.
that's going to be one of those little things that hinders you. So, I mean, it's all about a process. It's about applying a process that works over time. And it's a super slow thing. It's like making a pot of chili. It takes a while, but man, when you get it all together, you don't mess with it, you keep it simple, it works out great.
Yeah, right. I love that making a pot of chili, man. This is like that's my mother-in-law is a absolutely amazing chef,
Mhm.
and the food that we have coming through our kitchen is ridiculous. And I mean, if I went up there and said, "Hey, do you want me to see a little seasoning to this?" I'd get murdered.
Yeah.
She would straight up kill me because the way it's done, it's like it's finely done. It's finely tuned machine, man. And it's like the thing is though, is like I'm not going to step into someone else's arena,
Mhm.
and I need to know where my limitations are. I cannot cook. That is not my thing. But if I wanted to find out about the best information, then I am going to go to someone who knows it better than anyone else. Because I like what you said. Like, when I go to I'm not going to go take the guy on the street corners advice on how to step up my Muay Thai. I'm going to go to a coach that's like won fights in the arena, man, who's fought in Lupini. It's like going to someone who knows what they know because I think one of the dangers, and this is getting worse with social media out there, is that
Yep.
people are taking advice from people they shouldn't be taking advice from. There
100%.
there are so many finfluencers out there that are telling people, you know what, I've got the best thing. And granted, some of them might have great information, but here's the
Mhm.
problem, right? I know that if you took a um, person A and you put them into one workout routine and you put person B into the same workout routine, you might give person B a coronary. Like you
Right.
might give them a heart attack because it's not the right thing for them. But each person can have a personalized thing. You have to go to someone who knows that. I remember after my wife had our daughter, she wanted to get back in shape, and she was going to this one guy, and he was a great personal trainer. He was exceptional, but he was not right for her.
Hmm.
And he made her lift legs so heavy that there were days that she came home and she could not walk. And I said, why are you doing this? And she's like, well, he says it's going to make all the difference in the world. And I said, you know what? You go once a week right now,
Hmm.
and you can't really do much else because you're so tired afterwards.
Right.
And don't you think it would be better to find out a little bit more balanced approach? And
Mhm.
she's like, well, I don't. It wasn't even his wheelhouse that that it needed to be adapted. And nice guy, but I said, let's find someone else, and we did, and we found a person that was a great expert, was able to meet her where she's at, and it made all the difference in the world. So it's like you got to find what works and fits for you.
You really do, and again, I'm chock full of analogies. I love smoking meat. My wife won't let me in the kitchen to cook anything. Like, that is her arena. I stay completely outside. Our kids know that mom cooks inside, dad cooks outside.
There you go.
Um, and I love the analogy of smoking a brisket.
Mm,
Every brisket I've ever done, it's approach. I think we're over 40 now. I keep notes. I'm a nerd with it, but
that's awesome.
each one is different. I run the same rub on all of them: salt, pepper, garlic in 3 equal parts. But based on the weather conditions, based on how long the cook is supposed to be, the actual piece of meat actually finishes at a different temperature every time. It's very similar to when we work with a family, or the personal trainer analogy. You have a set of things that are kind of like cornerstone and base. Like, again,
Yeah.
personal trainer, like getting people to move, caloric deficit if you're trying to lose weight, or caloric
Yeah.
um, taking in more calories if you're trying to build muscle. There's these basic tenets, but then you have to customize the process to a degree to suit the individual and their needs and desired outcomes.
Yeah.
That's where, going back to the brisket, sometimes it's, we got to cook this one a little faster, we got to adjust this here, we got to adjust that there. And you still end up with something great, but the
Yes.
route that you took to get there was different in each case.
Yeah. I actually started a new podcast. I've got a lot of podcasts, but one of my favorites that I just started was about wine. I grew up in the Napa Valley,
Okay,
and
cool.
so my family is from wine country, and my brother still lives there and works there. And one of the things that I was as growing up in that valley, growing up in wine country, I got to see the way people did a lot of things.
Hmm.
And one of the things that you see when you work with people that do wine is that no two seasons are the same. No two varietals are the same. And any time that you're making wine, you have to sit there and like they break down and like, well, what are we doing right now? Just like your brisket analogy. Like
Right.
you might get two pieces of meat that look exactly the same, but they could be completely different inside. The makeup of the fat, ratio, or whatever it is, the marbling could be different, and you're sitting there and you're like, this needs a, a different approach. And the crazy thing is that you have to be a master or have a master nearby to help you with it. There's a really cool thing that I found out about. There was a certain group of people, I believe it's the Inuit people, that have a bunch of words for ice.
Hmm.
Now, it's interesting. In English, we have multiple words for ice because we interact with ice more in the US and in the Western and English speaking world. So we would like ice, snowy day, ice on the road would be
Hmm.
slush, you know?
Yeah, what if
What,
these?
yeah, you got, sleet is that raining ice, the black ice, but they have like then you would have like 40 or more. This is a huge number of words. And yet in Vietnamese, they have that one word because there's just not a lot of ice here, man. It's like you got
Mhm.
the ice that goes in your drink, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Because it's the amount of experience they have with something. Now, if I wanted to get perspectives on ice, I don't want to talk to someone here because they don't really interact with ice that much. Is this ice safe to walk on? The person from Vietnam's be like, I have no idea, because they don't have that experience. But if you go up to the people that have 40 different words for ice, then you start asking them questions about ice. They're going to have a much more refined ability to tell you about the ice, to work with you on understanding the ice. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And personal finance is the same. And that's why I talk about people, like, when I love talking to personal, like, certified financial planners and CPAs and people, because those are the people that have 40 or more words for ice, and
Hmm.
just, it's not ice, it's about that thing, and it's like, I think that, when I want to cook a brisket, man, I definitely want to find someone who knows how to cook that brisket well. I'm sure that I could figure it out,
Right.
but it's probably going to be about 10, 15 briskets that are going to be absolutely wasted before I get to the point where I'm getting a brisket that's actually pretty good. Now, the problem is when we're talking about personal finance, we don't have a lot of briskets.
Yeah, I always like to tell clients you get one shot at the turnstile through life, because there's a lot of people that will sit there and tell us, hey, if I could go back and do this, if I could go back and do that. You can't.
Yeah.
Sorry. We haven't invented the DeLorean is long gone. The flux capacitor has still not been invented. Doc Brown and Einstein have not been seen. We can't go back in time yet.
Right.
So we get one shot at this. And we don't know, even as planners. I mean, we have projections of how this is going to go, but life's going to happen. But at
Yeah.
least when you're working with a guide, whether it's discerning whether or not you can walk on ice, cooking a brisket, or your financial planning, if you're walking with someone that has some experience, when the conditions change, when the wind starts to blow a different way, or when the temperatures start to stall a little bit on the brisket, they can sit there and kind of hold your hand and say, "It's okay. This
Yeah.
is what we do in this scenario because we've seen it. We know
Hmm.
kind of how to react." That's not necessarily going to be the same exact reaction for everybody, but these are the conditions. This is what we can do. Same on the
Yeah.
personal trainer analogy. If someone starts to plateau for a
Yeah.
reason they really don't know, the trainer can sit there and go, with their experience and wisdom, I had another client like this. And this is
Mm.
maybe something that we should try because you're experiencing something similar, and you're really plugging into the breadth of knowledge and wisdom that professional has.
I love that. And it's like, you are. And again, I try to think back, like, I'm a huge sports fan.
Hmm.
And any of the greatest, teams might not have gotten to where they were if they didn't have a great coach.
Hmm.
There was that coach who would come in and see the person's potential. And I love that, because when we're talking about personal finance, you might have a person who's got all of this self talk, like, I'm not good with money. I've never been good with money. And that person looks at them and goes, "Hey, shut up, dude." That's just some bullshit. I'm sorry for the swearing, but, like, it is bullshit.
I,
Like, you might be great at money. You just have never been in the place where you really been able to manage it, or been able to, have the opportunity to have the income coming in that you need to have. So let's figure that out. First of all, let's figure out how to, help you spend less, and then also help you figure out to make more. And then we start working on the habits. And these are the habits that you need to have. And you start teaching people like that. I remember when my daughter first wanted to go swimming. First time in the pool, it was terrifying. But
hmm
then I was like, all right, these are the skills that you need to have. And once we learn those skills, man, it was game on.
100%. There's a lot of things that go into helping folks with the psychological side of things, and removing
Yeah.
self doubt. On social media, to tie back to that point a little bit, there's a lot of influencers out there, but also too, the concept of social media is, by and large, most people show their highlight reels. They don't
Yes.
see what's really going on underneath the surface. And so, like, especially in this day and age, we go, well, that person's taking this trip, or they're bought this house or this car or this or that. They must just be crushing it. You don't know what's underneath it. You
Yeah.
might be doing objectively way better than they are, but it doesn't feel like that. And so what's fascinating to me in this industry is so much of the psychology that we get into with our clients, and trying to coach them in a certain way and get them to perceive themselves in another way. We can show you projections all you want to that you're okay, But until that person really starts to believe those things and kind of switch off some of that talk in their own mind, some of that confirmation bias that they may or may not have, um, it's a slog. It can be, and it can be detrimental to folks at times.
If you were to get someone to come in to your office and they said, you know what, I'm not good with money, what tips would you give them to tell them, help them see that they could change that mindset and just become better with money?
I would first ask, what's your measure? What is your measure behind that statement? And the reason I say that is we all have ticks. We all have things that we like to spend money on. I've seen a ton of different things. Everybody has like their quirks. They want to
Yeah.
spend money on the things that they enjoy. I've also seen a lot of people that frankly need to spend more money. They need to stop hoarding it. So I would
Mm,
say the first thing is, what's your measure? How are you going that? And then the second thing too is like, where do you want to end up? What's the goal? Well, I don't
yeah.
know. Okay, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be at the end of next year? What would success look like for you in that regard? Because success to somebody might be, hey, I actually need to start spending some of this money. Or B, hey, I want to be better with money because I don't want to be broke and because I had family members that got to the end of their lives and they had nothing. Okay, now
Yeah.
we're starting to get to somewhere. Now we're starting to understand what is behind your measure of success and what's driving your state. That's where I would start.
Interesting. You have someone who's coming in and, they've been doing pretty good. They're on track, but they want to be able to level up. They've hit
Mhm.
a plateau. How do you help people that are hitting plateaus, kind of sit there and see what's possible, see what their next level could be?
That's really where we get into the fine tuning and the detail work. It's almost like tuning one of the guitars that you have behind you up there. It's where
Yeah.
you're really taking a look at it. They know how to play the instrument, but now you're
Yeah.
bringing in someone that has like tuned a piano before. It's a very
Hmm.
specific task. And you have someone that has the experience that can sit there and go, if your goal is this is what you're already doing. Here's the fine little tweaks. Let's maybe do this from a tax perspective. You've been putting in Roth, let's put in pre-tax, or vice versa, depending on your goal. Um, Maybe if you kind of recodified your spending, you refinanced your home. Now we're working in the details to like pick up little things here along the way. But you mentioned being a sports fan. They'll always talk about football as a game of inches. You
Yes.
know, it
Yes.
is all the little things that you're kind of doing and the little efficiencies that you're finding. When we get someone in that's like that, Sean, it is really about the fine, minute details, the deep in the weeds things that since we spend day in and day out in this industry, we know about and we can tweak on to get folks to where they want to go.
I love that. It's a game of inches. And the same thing with personal finance, it is a game of little wins. And that's some of the things that I think some people have a hard time with is like your little choices that you make today can have dramatic effects in the long term. And yet, you might not see it right away. I'm going to start. A 23-year-old is like, you know what? I'm going to start setting aside $1,000 a month or $100 a month into investing. And they're like, they're not going to see the return on that right away. But the compounding interest, you know what I mean? By the time they hit 65, it's a game of inches. And you have to convince people to play the game early and to get in and really leverage time, you know?
Mhm. There's another thing I will say too. One of the greatest, most powerful things in any area of personal finance is consistency.
Oh, I
It
love that.
is it is the continuing to do the right-ish things, I'll say it, the right-ish things all the time. Back when I was in the motorsports industry, some of the best drivers, crew chiefs I ever worked with, they weren't always at the top of the speed charts, but they were extremely consistent, lap after lap after lap. The good news is about a race, whether it's timed or lapped, there is an end point. And greatness done consistently over time will yield to a very positive result. Because if you think about a driver that can run consistent lap times and maintain their equipment throughout the course of an entire event, when everybody else is doing this number, that guy usually wins. That guy that was consistent, saved his stuff, was wise with things, wasn't flashy, consistently showed up getting the checkered flag, the kiss from the trophy gala in victory lane, and spraying champagne everywhere. But it was the consistent little things that they continued to commit to do, hitting their marks in the corner, not abusing their equipment, honestly doing the boring things. Doing the boring um, matters a lot.
One of my favorite movies is Ford versus Ferrari. Love
Oh yeah.
Christian Bale in that movie. So
Hmm.
good. Matt Damon plays a great character. And you get two things in there. And first of all, they're talking about Le Mans. It's which is a massive endurance race, and 24 hours of driving and the car is just getting absolutely abused. And it's an endurance thing. It's a little things that they do to make those 24 hours achievable. And one of the things I love in that movie is it exemplifies exactly what you said. Like it's these little things, these people that are coming in and you know, one year they didn't win, and they go back the next year refining the things that they saw went wrong. And sitting there, okay, we messed up. We saw we were close, but let's change this, this, and this. But again, it circles back to what we were talking about earlier. It's also knowing the rules. I loved in that because they learned changing the brakes. Well, let's just swap out the whole assembly.
The whole
And,
assembly.
it's like, yeah, can we do that? Can we? It's in the rules, man. It's safe. And then they tell people like, you can't do that. And they're like, here's your rule book. It's totally, it's right here. And that's the thing. Like, it goes back and you play the game, but it's also about having the people that are taking the time to read that rule book so you play it right. You know what I mean? Because the rule book's always changing in any sport. But if you can't read it all, but you can have people who do know it.
Chad Knaus was one of the most successful NASCAR crew chiefs in the sport's history. He was a protege of Ray Evernham, who was with Jeff Gordon for all of his championships. But Chad Knaus led Jimmy Johnson to 7 NASCAR Cup titles. He
Wow.
is world famous for knowing the ins and outs of the NASCAR rulebook better than the people that wrote it.
Yeah.
And that's where he was able to gain all of the advantages that helped his driver win 7 championships. The guy wasn't always had the fastest car or this or that, but even on such things as like pit road rules and the things that they could get away with from a strategy standpoint, wasn't always about the car. He just knew all of the rules. And that makes a huge difference. He took the time, and that's objectively why that driver was extremely successful.
That's awesome. I was always that person who was playing by the rules, who always was scared of stepping out of line. One of the things that I realized as I got older was that um, certainly don't go cheating is what I'm saying. But like I was talking to my daughter about this the other day, but I said you have to be smarter to play the games. You have to be smarter to win the games. And she's
Mhm.
like, and we were watching a sports game, and it was just. And I remember when I played sports when I was younger, I was big into volleyball, and I remember we saw this one team show up, and these guys were so good. They were so flashy. They were so strong. But then we saw another team that was not as flashy on paper that just destroyed them. And I sat there and I thought about it. Well, what was it that went right? And it was a million little things that team
Mhm.
did right. You know, everyone volleyball is an interesting sport, and it's like when you get. No, I'm not talking like the people like on a picnic, but like truly high level competitive volleyball. You get guys that have 40 something inch verticals that
Mhm.
are just absolute powerful, like just slamming this ball straight down on the other side of the net. And what was interesting is like the team that won that game, they were playing like grandpa.
Mhm.
They would go up and instead of power hitting, the guy would be like, and just tap it on the back behind him where the person wasn't. Like, it was just playing smart. And the other team was so frustrated because their talent, their strength was just getting like absolutely beat down by people that were using their brain. Like, and like pop the ball right there, just it's a little boop over there. And like these guys were just about ready to lose it. And then afterwards, I remember walking up and I was chatting with one of the guys. I was like, what was that all about? And he's like, dude, we can't compete with those guys, like muscle for muscle. Like, dude, I don't have a 40-inch vert. Like, I can jump like 18 inches, man. It's pretty horrible, but like, that's where I'm at, you know? And he's like, I got to use my brain. You got to be smarter. And it's something that I think too, like, going back to the beginning, like, yeah, certainly the deck is not, the deck is stacked. You know what I mean? Certain people come out with an advantage, and that's life. That
Hmm.
is life. There are people that are born with a silver spoon in their mouths. If that's not you, get over it. You can still learn to play the game. You just got to be smart, man.
And to that point, what I will say is working with some second generation and even third generation folks that did have that. I think there's an assumption out there that they don't have struggles. They're just
Right?
different struggles than what other people deal with. Maybe the
So true,
majority
man.
there are different struggles. There are different sets of things that they still have to work through. So like everybody's in this deal together where, the deck is stacked, but the deck's not always the same. The conditions aren't always the same. There are still struggles. There are still things that you have to work through, but they're
Yeah.
just different based on the environment and the deck that you were dealt.
There's I when I was younger, I studied Eastern philosophy, and the great philosopher Lao Tzu um, uh, created the philosophy of Taoism, and he's got this set of poems that create his lineages stuff. But there's one great story poem that talks about a ladder, and he
Hmm.
says whether you're at the top of the ladder or at the bottom of the ladder, your position is unstable.
Hmm.
He says the people at the bottom of the ladder feel that they want to be at the top, and people at the top of the ladder are always worried about falling back down to the bottom. And he says the reality is wherever you're at on the ladder, you're going to be dealing with something. So just be where you're at. Doesn't mean you can't climb it. Just be aware that just when you get to the top, there's another set of issues that you'll see. If you're at the bottom, there's a set of issues. So stop stressing about being on the ladder and just figure out where you want to be, how you're going to be there. And then when you get there, you worry about the stuff that you worry about when you get there, but don't worry about it now. Focus on where you're at and your game plan.
Going back to the very beginning of this conversation, we kind of talked about my wife and I's journey. I keep track of what we spend per month, and I've done so since the day we've been married. It's 9 years ago as of yesterday. When I go back and I look at what we allocated to spend on back in the day and what was really important to us then versus what it is now, just in that short period of time, it's exactly true. You're just at a different space on the ladder. And by the way, the things that I thought would be fixed when I got to a certain rung on that ladder maybe were fixed, but that wasn't the end of an issue. That wasn't a one for one reduction of those things. One thing disappeared, another thing presented itself. I didn't get rid of something off of a list. And I think that's a major misnomer, especially across all spectrums of wealth. If I could just get to this level, then it'll all be okay. No, it won't. That issue you think you had, or that perception of an issue you think that you had, is going to go away. And then now you're going to have another one. Because, oh, by the way, if you just thought, oh, I'd love to be able to afford a brand new car one day. Okay, that's fine. Well, then when you get to that point, it's like, well, I was thinking a brand new Ford. Now I'm thinking a brand new Lexus. And now that's kind of the next thing. It's like it never fully goes away, but knowing where you're at, knowing that there's always going to be things that kind of present themselves to you and how you mitigate them, your response to all those little things is what matters the most versus more so thinking that it's just going to go away when you get to this level.
Yeah. I think again, figuring out like, and again, coming back full circle to the really beginning of this conversation, figuring out your purpose, figuring out your why. What
Yeah.
is it that's really your why in your whole financial plan? Why
Right.
why do you want to have that money? Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to have that safety net? Why do you want to travel? Why do you want to do this? If once you have that why, and then create a plan, but just understand that wherever you're at, there's going to be something. So you build the team that can support you through whatever that something might be, because man, we're all in a boat journeying down this rapid moving river. And I would sure as heck prefer to be in that boat with a bunch of people that I can lean on, trust, and really know that I can depend on when things get turbulent because, man, every river gets turbulent at times.
It does, and since we are, or at least myself, I'm a person that practices what he preaches. My wife and I have a financial goal plan. I can tell you what it is right now. We found out 3 weeks into being married we were going to have a kid. Was not the plan. Was not the idea. We were going to go travel as a young married couple and have fun and all this other stuff. And 3 weeks in, found out we were going to have a kid, and we had to grow up real quick. Our financial plan is this simply: 20 years from right now, little Lord willing, my youngest child will walk across the stage at college graduation and hopefully go out into the world and be on his own. We want to be in a place where we have the opportunity to work by choice and spend time traveling around and doing things together.
Yeah,
Every financial decision that we make, backing up those 20 years, goes with that end goal in mind. And that's all it takes. What do you want that future to look like? By the way, you'll notice they didn't say that at 92, I wanted to have X amount of dollars.
yeah,
It was something that I cannot take with me when I leave this world, and that is time with the person that matters to me the most. And there's a
100%.
very strong why driving that. That's what we encourage people to find. It's not just the dollar, it's what does the dollar as a tool allow you to do that you can't replace.
I love that. This has been a theme of the last couple episodes, and one of the people that came on, she said, "Forget about ROI." She's talking about ROL, return on life versus return on investment. And and I think that that's something that all of the financial planners that I talk to that are really have a solid foundation, and I think that's most of them. They sit there and go, you know what? It's not about the money. It's about where you want to do, what you want to do, where you want to be, and what you want to experience. Because at the end of the day, you're like you said, we got one trip under the sun, man, and then you're done. And so you might as well, and you're not going to regret, not putting extra money into this account or that account. You're going to regret not spending the time with the people you cared about, not taking that trip, not. But if you haven't set aside the resources, you're not going to have those abilities to do that, and then you're going to be stuck in a place that you don't want to be.
And that's where the true regret comes from.
Yes.
That is where the true regret comes from. It is not, to your point, it is not about whether or not we put the extra 10 cents in over here, did this or did that. It was from we didn't get to a place where we could go do the things that we wanted to go do, have the experiences we wanted to have with the people that we wanted to have them with.
Yes. That's it. That's it. If you could go back in time and give some advice to your younger self about finances, what advice would you give yourself?
Do not sweat every single penny. Do not
Mm,
sweat every single penny. Get clear on what you want out of life that is not solely driven by a dollar, and start working backwards from that. The rest of this, over half of the battle, is just figuring out what the destination is. There's a lot of ways from St. Louis, Missouri to get to Los Angeles, California.
yeah.
I need to know I want to go to LA, and then I may take several different routes to get there. I focused way too much on the routes to get there versus what I really wanted to do by getting to that destination. So if I could go back and tell a younger version of myself that, don't sweat that as much. And the funny thing that as you get older, you really realize there's some truth into things just have a way of working themselves out.
Yep.
Don't spend the brain power on trying to figure it all out when you're young.
That's great advice, man. Where can people find out more about you and look up information about your services?
I think probably the best place is get on LinkedIn. I have a goofy spelling of my last name, but it's Kyle Luetters, Luetters. It sounds like the people that during riots are like busting windows and taking stuff. You got the pronunciation right if you do that. But LinkedIn's probably the best place. The name of our firm is Moneta Group, Moneta Group. It's a fee only shop here in St. Louis. We've grown across the US. We have clients internationally. But I would say those are the best places to find it. I post a lot of content on LinkedIn. Some of it's professional, but a lot of it's personal because this is personal finance. And it's showing folks along the way. And when we really get to work with clients, they become friends and extended family members of what we do because this is such a deeply personal topic that we're helping them out with.